Hey y'all, my name is Maddie Cheever. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist, certified health education specialist, type 1 diabetes specialized coach, and the face and founder of Type 1 Type Fun. And I also live with type 1 diabetes. I share stories, resources, and tips to make diabetes management easier and a lot more relatable and fun. Living with type 1 diabetes doesn't mean giving up the outdoors. Meet Paul Reed, founder of Type 1 Outdoors. From climbing and hiking to managing blood sugar miles from home, Paul shares how preparation, mindset, and the right tools make adventure possible, diabetes and all. So, Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Yes, and it's good to see you. It's been a little bit, but I am glad that we are back, and Happy New Year. And I want to jump right in if that's all right.
Let's jump right in.
Okay, so obviously I know, and now everyone listening will know, that you are an avid sportsman and outdoorsman living with type 1 diabetes. So tell me a little bit more. How did diabetes change the way you approach the outdoors at first, if anything?
Okay, so at first, I was diagnosed a long time ago. In fact, this year, fun fact, this is my 40th diaversary coming up this year. So many years ago, way back in the, I don't know, mid 80s, 86 to be exact, I got my diagnosis. And back then I was just, a 15-year-old kid, as most kids are diagnosed in their teenage years anyway. Um, I was diagnosed as your typical teenager. Back then, I was diagnosed in Australia. I was living in Australia, and that's where I was born. And diabetes tech back then in the mid '80s was in its infancy. There wasn't very much diabetes tech. In fact, there wasn't really much diabetes management from a personal standpoint. And like most 15-year-old kids, especially diagnosed with a chronic condition, it requires some discipline, which no 15-year-old has. So I was a bad diabetic, as we all were when we were first diagnosed. But welcome to the club. But anyway, that was kind of my defining diagnosis. 15 years old, getting diagnosed. Only one in the family, so I had no one else to reference to living with a chronic condition, as many of us are anyway. So that's kind of the origin story.
Yeah. Oh, you're speaking my language. I was diagnosed at 14. I'm the unicorn of my family as well.
Uh-huh.
And I went home on Halloween Day, which I used to think was ironic until I learned what diabetes was, type 1 at least. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, great. And it does require a lot at first. And really throughout time, I think with type 1, it does get easier, but sometimes there's ups and downs, there's challenges.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So well, I guess I know there's challenges. We all know there's challenges, right? Anyone listening knows. But is there ever a moment where you realized that diabetes wasn't going to or didn't have to stop you from doing the things that you love?
I don't know if there was one particular moment. Instead, I think there was a culmination of small moments that kind of like the evidence was there. It's like, the doctors say I can't do this or can't do that, but, I kind of can. So there wasn't really one particular moment. It was just like, yeah, I can pretty much do anything. I mean, there's really nothing holding me back. I mean, sure, it takes a little bit longer to recover from a hypo, but it's not a big deal. And eventually, give some mileage on that. You'll eventually realize that, my diabetes, I can manage. I can handle. So, like, a doctor could look at my graph and see, oh no, you went down to like 45. How did you recover from that? It's like, dude, it happens all the time. It's like, this is not a big deal. So, yeah, my diabetes management is my management. I know how to recover from a low. And fun fact, I have survived 100% of my hypos. 100%. Thank you.
That's pretty fantastic coming up on 40 years.
Coming up 40 years, 100% of my hypos
Wow. And
recovered.
incredible. And I think that's actually one of the coolest things that we get to say is that diabetes is tough for sure. It has a lot of challenges, but how cool is it that we are given so many challenges and we actively overcome them every single day? And sometimes we even forget that we're doing that, like we're not, but we are.
Right.
And if we I mean, I don't know, I think my life would look totally different without diabetes. Maybe for the better, but also maybe for the worse. It's really, forced me to prioritize myself and my health and a
Yeah.
lot of really beneficial things.
I often think about that too. Like without diabetes, I would not have met this awesome community of diabetics. There wouldn't be a reason to meet other awesome diabetics. And so I don't know, would my life feel more fulfilled not meeting all these awesome people? Who knows? Life didn't travel that direction. So, but here we are.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you don't have diabetes, don't worry, we love you too, but you're missing out just a little bit.
You missing out.
We're a fun time, we are.
You
I'm
don't
sure
want to
you're
take
important.
insulin externally. I mean, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to check your blood sugar all the time, every time, and take insulin and manage carbs and counting and numbers and doctors and appointments and prescriptions and copays but hey, I'm just getting started. So, I love this. I love that we're already getting to have such a blast, and hopefully for those listening, everyone feels just like, "You know what? We get it. We all get it."
You get it.
And so I'm kind of curious about the inspiration of Type 1 outdoors. What kind of gap did you see in the diabetes space?
Yeah, that was about 10 years ago, around 2015, 2016. I had been a diabetic for, about 30 something years back then, 30 years or so. And I was like, living as a diabetic, doing diabetes with regular life stuff. A lot of the friends that I had at the time, we were getting into mountaineering, we were getting into climbing. I was already starting to get into a lot of outdoorsy things, hiking in the mountains or perhaps getting into running, training for a race or things like that. And then I discovered that there is a, I don't know, an intangible thing about being in the outdoors, about being in the mountains, being in nature, that there was this very difficult to explain, but there is this intangible thing that does amazing things for your mental health. And the burden that we all feel as type 1s, we feel the weight of diabetes. It's like it's with us all the time, 24/7. We don't get to take breaks from this. But this burden, this weight felt lifted when I was in nature, in the mountains, and I wanted more of that. So I did a lot of things to try and get myself into the mountains, whether it be going to a ski resort and snowboarding, and then like, okay, well, what could I do that combined multiple activities in the mountains? I was enjoying running. Well, how about trail running? Okay, I get to do running in the mountains. Okay, well, what about rock climbing? I like rock climbing, but what about doing rock climbing in the mountains? Introducing mountaineering, and now we have like snow sports combined with climbing sports, and all of this was going into the mountains, getting into nature, that intangible wilderness therapy that does these amazing things for your mental health when you're burdened with a chronic condition like type 1 diabetes.
Oh, my goodness. Every single time you explain the outdoors in some way, shape, or form, it makes me feel exactly what it is. You said it's kind of hard to explain. I know it though. I know what you're talking about. I've lived in many places, right? Lived in Hawaii, lived in Colorado. I've seen these beautiful places and done this hiking and done the walks, the exploration, the going through paths. And it is absolutely therapy. You're right. And I think maybe that's one of the ways that sharing your story specifically has been helpful to others with diabetes. And is there anything else that you feel has helped support others with T1D with getting confident getting outside?
Well, that's exactly it. It's that confidence. We're trying to get to a little bit of that confidence. Living with a chronic condition like type 1, we always like walk into scenarios where we lose our confidence. Like, I've been running high for 3 days straight. I don't feel like I've got this under control. Yet when we use like a little bit of our getting into nature and like putting a plan together and executing a plan, we feel that confidence come back. And that was part of the plan of building this whole idea of being type 1 in the outdoors to encourage, to inspire other type 1 diabetics to one to do these things that may seem a little outlandish, but understanding that, if you put together a plan, execute it with living with a chronic condition, you can actually achieve some pretty amazing things. Climb really high mountains, go backpacking for 5, 6, 7 days, with just limited supplies. Like, how does that all come together? For someone who's just getting started in outdoors, we've done this before. When we travel, just traveling, whether it's an overnight travel trip or a week-long trip or a 2-week vacation, when we as diabetics, we travel, we put together a plan. It's like, well, I'm going to need some supplies, maybe a couple extra supplies just in case something fails. We bring a lot of tech with us too, especially CGMs and pumps. And we all know how tech likes to behave, especially in scenarios where we're maybe traveling, we're away from home, or perhaps off the grid in the mountains. The same thing. You bring your backups, you use your backups, and you have a backup plan just in case something fails. And what's going to fail the most? Our tech, you know, pumps and CGMs mostly. So, backup plan that will, inspire a little more confidence in getting out there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love it. I know myself, I bring backups for the backups if I have the
Right.
space because I know that when things are going well and I'm in my normal life, like sure, maybe something fails here or there, but oh no, it's totally gonna fail when I'm on the trip around the world or when
Of
I'm in the really
course.
important 3 hour away meeting or, it's that the like last night I ran out of insulin in my pump, just completely forgot and was out on a date with my significant other and hours I was without my pump, but I brought backups because I knew I was like, "Okay," like, I always bring it just in case for
Just in
whatever may
case.
happen. Yeah. Yeah, I love this. I really appreciate kind of providing some of that. To me, understanding having backups is a layer of confidence itself. So, one of the biggest things I hear from people with T1D are the fears of things not working or fears of travel because what if that, what if this, whatever it may be. So, do you have any top must know tips for managing blood sugar when you are on an outdoor adventure?
Well, that's the thing. It's like fear is usually fear comes on because you're entering something new, a new experience, or perhaps there's lack of experience, and that fear becomes like this daunting thing of, well, what if? You know, Starting out and getting over a lot of that fear is baby steps. Just do baby steps. Do something small, manageable, and controlled, and see how far you can take it. Everyone's experience in managing fear is going to be different. So it's just a matter of like, well, I need to do this for myself. How do I get there? So it's like, well, I kind of want to go on a camping trip, but I've never camped before. Okay, do you have a tent? Maybe set it up in the living room. See kind of like what a baby step could look like. And you know, um, I was trying to think about the first question that you had for me, and I went down this fear this fear pathway. Can you please refresh me on what that? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, managing blood sugar with outdoor activities. You know what? When I pack for something, whether it's a 5-day backpacking trip or a 2-hour hiking trip, the same thing applies. We break everything down into its smallest, tiny foundation components. Number one, we need something to treat low blood sugar. We need something to treat high blood sugar. Make it simple. Those two things. If we just focus on those two things, we can expand them and we can contract them. So, if I'm going on a 5-day backpacking trip, do I have enough to handle 5 days worth of hypos? Do I have enough to handle 5 days worth of high blood sugar? You know, I'm going out for a 2-hour hike in the local mountains. Same thing, just scale it down. I might bring just a candy bar and then some, glucose tablets. Or perhaps I'm bringing my extra fast acting insulin pen just in case my pump might fail, you know. So there was a whole bunch of different things. For me, myself, I like to travel, with inhalable insulin. Inhalable insulin is great. It's pocket friendly. It doesn't require refrigeration. It's rapidly acting and it's rapidly evaporating. So it's not something that's going to cause hypos, and it's not something that's going to stay in my system long enough. It's a great little backup. So that's how I do my backups in like smaller cases, like a
Yeah.
little 2-hour hike in the hills.
Okay. And I think the thing that I think of is, okay, I mean, I've worked with hundreds of people with T1D, and one of the questions that I would think someone would ask is like, okay, these are all good tips, but how much do you actually bring? Literally the numbers. And there isn't a number. There isn't a number unless you find it for yourself. Everyone's different. But my pro tip, I know I'm not outdoor as much per se, but when I go on adventures or even when I go out dancing or whatever it may be, I bring as much as I possibly can. And then I bring some cash just in case and figure it out from there. And really sometimes what that looks like is if I'm out and about, maybe I have 10 fruit snacks in one boot and 10 fruit snacks in a little purse or whatever it may be. Cause you better believe that worst case scenario, that's what, 300 carbs on my person. Okay, I'm good.
You'll survive.
Yeah. So I think if you are on that first adventure, maybe breaking it down, making it smaller, and then also bringing way more than you ever think you could possibly need, backups for the backups for the backups. And then hopefully you come home with way too many supplies and you're like, okay, I definitely don't need to carry that much next time.
That's usually the case,
Yeah. Yeah. And then you figure it
especially
out.
starting out.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And what about, like, I know we've already kinda talked about our technology potentially failing, but is there gear or tech that you specifically never leave without, have to have, anything like that?
Yeah, so specific tech, I think, hands down, I the CGM is probably the the most significant tech advancement in the diabetes space in the last, 50, 100 years. I don't even know. But I think when it comes to specific tech, the CGM is way more important than your insulin delivery system because we can get creative with insulin delivery. That's not a problem. I mean, I've used a syringe to siphon insulin out of a broken pump. No big deal. Like I said, inhalable insulins. If my inhaler is missing, I can always just take one of these cartridges and just open it up and use it. We can get creative with our insulin delivery. Glucose monitoring, though, now we're in the space of, well, I can bring my BGM, right? The old fingerstick meter. I always do. But it's one of those things where it's like it's a snapshot in time. It's not telling me my trends. I could be like, oh, 130, that's great, but I could be hypo in 20 minutes. You know,
Yeah, I'm with you. If I had to only have one, a CGM or a pump, I think I would still keep my CGM. Although
exactly.
I love the freedom my pump provides, but I know how to deal without it better than without my CG with if I don't have my CGM, I feel like I'm driving a car that I can't see out of.
Right.
It's scary,
It
and
is.
you're right, it is just a snapshot unless you're willing to prick your finger every 10, 15 minutes for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes. Yeah. Okay. And, speaking of that, especially with the hypo in consideration, fear is something that holds people back for sure after
Oh, for sure.
diagnosis or maybe they've had a situation happen. They went hiking, they went low, they vow never to hike again. What would you say to someone who maybe has that fear, but maybe they want to push past that physical or mental limitation?
So yeah, that mental limitation, that's a tough one to get around because, as diabetics, we've all experienced that hypo and it's trauma. I mean, it's like PTSD, like right there. We've felt it. It's a physical thing. It's like, I don't like this and I don't want to experience it again at home, let alone like off the grid somewhere. How terrifying would that be? So when it comes to hypo remedies, I usually, especially in the outdoors, I tell people like bring something that is melt proof and crush proof. And this gives you an opportunity to go to the candy store and experiment. Find some candies that meet those two criteria. You don't want something that melts. So sorry, Snickers fans and Reese's peanut butter fans, that those are going to melt. You want something that's going to be unmeltable, whether it's hard candy like Starburst. Starbursts are great, by the way. They're individually wrapped too. Um, but my go-to, just to kind of cut to the chase here, is this little payday bar. It's snack size, so it's pocket friendly. It's crush proof, and it doesn't melt. So, it's kind of the trifecta of outdoors hypo remedies.
Okay, I like this. Yeah. I I really admire this bit of expertise, especially considering I know I've had a meltable something in a car, in a purse, whatever it may be. So out getting outdoors or not, this is top tier advice. So I like that very much. So thank you. I think that is helpful for everyone listening. So just in case you need to listen back through the next last few minutes, do it because it's worth it. And just out of curiosity, I'm just asking for funsies now. Are there any specific adventures or upcoming eh, activities or anything on your personal bucket list?
Personal bucket list. It's tough to put my finger on that because I do have a number of adventures coming up. Um, besides the usual outdoor activities, and locally here in Southern California, I put together these small little meetups on the weekends. Bringing together type ones and non-type ones, and we end up like hiking a small mountain. Out here in Southern California, we're kind of spoiled. We get a lot of access to a lot of mountains. In the summertime, I put together these climbing trips for type 1 diabetics who want to get into or at least experience rock climbing. And so we go out to Joshua Tree National Park for a weekend and we camp and we discuss ideas of like, well, how do I, you know, camp with insulin that needs to stay cool? Or perhaps how do I, manage my CGM or my pump site when I'm wearing a climbing harness, things like that. And so there is a lot of this discussion about how to prep for certain activities that we do. And you know what? A lot of the questions that I get out there on these adventures are from the non type 1 diabetics. They're super curious about well, how does insulin work? How, if you go low, do you need insulin? No. You know, when you go high, do you need sugar? And how does diabetes work? What causes it? How do you manage it? What's it like, day by day? The type ones, we have all those answers to those questions. The non-type ones, they're the ones that are super curious. They're the ones that are learning something. They're like, I'm fascinated. You guys do this all the time. For us, it's like, well, yeah, it's not a
Yeah,
big deal. It's we wouldn't be around if we didn't. But, this is our life. So,
it is.
I kinda went off on a tangent there, as I do, but
I love it. No, that's great. And maybe how can people get involved in your weekends? Where can they find that information?
so oftentimes my information, I put it up on my social media, sometimes on my website if it's something big. On my social media, I'm Type 1 Outdoors, all spelled out, and, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and web. And beyond that, I now have a second account. It's called Type 1 Climbs. Once again, all spelled out. So there's Type 1 Outdoors for just outdoorsy activities and fun stuff, in nature. And then there's Type 1 Climbs, which is more climbing specific, rock climbing, mountaineering, things like that.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad that you said that. Thank you. I want to make sure that everyone knows that all of that information will also be in the show notes. So maybe just a quick wrap up question. Is there anything really exciting coming up for Type 1 Outdoors in the next year?
In the next year, there was just small events, small gatherings. There was camps. I'm still doing my camps out in Joshua Tree and up in the Eastern Sierra. And for Type 1 Outdoors, it's just local hikes. And there's an area called Local Treks where I put together these small little meetups. in the local mountains where, we can, come together as groups of type 1s and non-type 1s, friends and family. And I put together like a small hike, whether it's in Griffith Park in Los Angeles, something easy peasy, or something a little more challenging up in the bigger mountains where it's going to take a few more hours. And, but I cover all of that in what the activity is.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And if you are anywhere near, local or just passing by and happen to want to join in, then make sure you grab that information from Paul. I know I want to be in on the next experience whenever I can be. I will be there sometime eventually. I know we've talked about it before. I want to make it out. So make sure if you are interested in these kinds of things, diabetes does not stop you from participating. And Paul is your go-to.
That
All
sounds
right.
great. That sounds wonderful.
Yep, I would love it. Well, go outside, go touch some grass, get some fresh air in your lungs. Maybe, I don't know, climb a little, hike a little, do something fun. Paul, anything else?
Just get outdoors, like get inspired and try and discover some of that intangible wilderness therapy and remove some of that burden of living with type 1 just for a little tiny bit.
It really does wonders. It really does. And Paul, I can't thank you enough for today. So
You're
thank
welcome.
you a million times and go get outside, y'all.
That was good.
That's it for today, my friends, but the fun doesn't stop here. If you liked this episode and want more real talk diabetes support, come hang out with me on social. Just search Type 1 Type Fun, all words, or head to type1typefun.com for tools, tips, freebies, and real-life resources you can actually use. And if this episode made you laugh, learn, or feel a little more seen, feel free to leave a comment, give it a like, share it with someone you love. But until next time, live empowered, be silly, have fun, and eat some carbs.
The information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast.